Hey everyone, this is Amazing Fantasy Football. I am Josh, and he is,
Chris,
and Chris, he is. How you doing today, Chris?
I'm doing great. I love Sunday mornings.
Great, great. I hate this Sunday morning so much. As I told you before, I got woken up at before 5 by my upstairs neighbor.
Yeah.
They were herding elephants and maybe doing some illegal activities. I don't know. I just quarter to 5 in the morning is too late
Seems
or too early for anything.
for any activity.
So yeah,
Agreed.
I've never actually met them, but I almost did this morning, and it wouldn't have been a very pleasant meeting. Anyways, we're here today. We are Amazing Fantasy Football, and we are here to talk about some wide receivers today. Wide receivers 1 through 12 that finished this 2020 season. Next week we will talk about wide receivers 13 through 24. We got definitely some interesting names on that list. And
Sure.
and then the week after that, we're going to do some tight ends, and after that, we'll kind of see. We have some pokers in the fire, and we'll see what ideas we pull out. And your guess is as good as ours right now. So.
I'm actually kind of excited about those segments, though, because I mean, you've already fired off a couple off the top of your head of it in terms of ideas. Yeah, that and some of them aren't so cliche-ish. You know what I mean? Like your typical off-season chatter, but no, off-season is actually one of my favorite times. I'm a big personnel guy. I like the NFL draft very much. I like dynasty fantasy very much. You are now in the dynasty league that I'm in, so I'm super excited about that.
Right here, not going to win this season, no sir, but maybe in the future.
You never know. That's all I'll say. But yeah. No, I'm excited about this show today because I think wide receivers is a very obviously we understand running backs are very important because of their scarcity, but wide receivers are very important because you have to parse through the guys that are putting up historic numbers. Seems like every season, you know.
You got to try and find those diamonds in the rough wide receiver
value
and the guys that. And sometimes you just have to find the right guy to hit on the right week too. It's because it's so. Especially when we get into the like next week's show of the guys 13 through 24, there's a lot of boom busts on there. Right, and this week we have a lot more, every week starters. Obviously, they're the top 12 wide receivers, everything. So the guys on next week's show and even moving forward are going to be like you're going to have to kind of either start them every week and take your lumps of their bad weeks, or maybe do a bit of a rotation as far as your wide receiver 2-3 sort of thing.
Almost like streaming. Almost like streaming your 2-3.
A little bit, yeah.
Your flex, wide receiver 2 in your flex, especially if you're talking full PPR, which one of our big leagues is a full PPR. So it almost makes it a 3 receiver league, in my opinion, especially when you get so scared, so much shallow at running back. Like you're almost better off starting a receiver there. Because you can't find an RB3, if you will. So I just think the receivers are very significant in that way.
Well, maybe you can't. I certainly have in that league.
Well, you also lost one.
Let's
lost a couple.
This season it did, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start off with some news that
right.
I mean, it sounds like it's more or less said and done.
I think so.
Why don't you look up what is going down with this trade, and while I say what's going on with it, like who's getting what in the trade? Can you look that up for me?
Last I heard, it was.
Anyway, so it sounds like the Lions and the Rams are doing a quarterback swap, and the Lions are getting a draft haul. Like the Rams are getting Stafford, and the Lions.
Oh wow! Yeah,
2021 first round pick.
Mm-hmm.
The Lions are getting Goff. The Rams. The Rams' third round pick this year.
Oh, they're getting their
first round pick next
2023.
Year.
Yeah,
their first round pick the year after that. Like the Rams are giving up a lot for a soon to be 33-year-old quarterback.
And Goff was the number 1 overall pick too. I mean, hey, give credit to somebody who's willing to Okay, cut your losses.
I think part of the Rams thing too, and the one thing that the Rams are getting rid of with this trade is they're getting rid of Goff's salary, which they have to sit back and behind closed doors admit that they gave him way too much money for absolutely no reason.
It's still a trade though. So how many years does I don't know how many years Stafford has left in relation to how many years Goff had left? Huh? 2?
Yeah, and Goff
that sounds right. That
4.
Oh, really? He just got paid a year or two ago? He did, didn't he? 2 years.
Right after their Super Bowl.
As of the end of this regular season, or whatever, the season's not over, but you know what I mean. That would have been 2 years ago, I think. Because it didn't happen last year, but you're right. No, so you're right. At least 3 or 4 left. Either way, it's also a big number.
A very big number.
But two first. Now, I've read a little other comments of friends and or folks online that they're mortgaging their future. I'm like, I'm not surprised. They've been aggressive since he got hired. The coach GM combination got hired. He's been an aggressive guy.
They're giving up a lot. Mm-hmm. If this doesn't work out for them, these guys, everyone, that whole the front office is getting just canned.
Well,
it is.
I think they also realize today's NFL is a what have you done for me lately league. So they're like,
right,
we'll mortgage a little for the short term because it's more of an aggressive league. Does that make sense? Shorter turnaround. I don't know. Go ahead though.
I think that their president or even the owner, whoever it is like, yeah, you better get a Super Bowl ring out of this, or
it's Super Bowl bust, no doubt. I'm definitely.
I don't even know if Super Bowl appearance is going to cut it. It is going to have to be a championship and nothing short of a championship. Otherwise, these guys.
I'd say a Super Bowl appearance at least.
No, because they got one out of Goff, and
that's true. That's a good point.
And Goff was terrible in that Super Bowl too. Like it was.
Yeah, he was.
That's why I didn't understand how he got a big contract. Anyways, let's talk about
how we'll talk about him when we talk about Robert Woods too. So
obviously this doesn't help Detroit whatsoever. It actually hurts just about everyone. They have the only wide receiver they have on under contract as of right now for 2021 is their third or fourth round pick from last year's draft, Quintez Cephas.
And Marvin Jones is also free, if you will.
Yes, he is an unrestricted free agent. So is Kenny Golladay. This is going to be a completely different Lions team, I think, next year.
Dude,
I don't know.
I
don't think it's going to be for the better either. I think there's going to be some definite growing pains next year.
Oh, who's their coach? I saw the interview. I saw the interview of the Philly guy. Wow,
some guy I've never heard of before.
Exactly.
To be honest,
that's what I'm saying. It wasn't the Philly guy. I'm just saying it's somebody very insignificant, and it's not a job anybody wanted. Wow. I mean, the Texans is the worst job out there, but that's on record by source. Anyway, Detroit's going to be bad. They're going to be bad for a couple years. Galladay's.
At least.
That'll be interesting. Off-season stuff. Again, I'm a big fan of the NFL draft. That ties straight into the off-season of the free agency and where guys like that will go. It's exciting.
Yeah. As far as the Rams, though, I mean, like this really has to help Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods a lot. And then the Rams just gave both those guys contracts. Robert Woods. Was he last offseason and Cooper Kupp was the offseason before, I think? Or maybe they were both last offseason? Forgive me if I'm
meaning 2019? 2019 was... Oh, I'm sorry, offseason?
Woods was like 20, like right before this past season. So in the 2020 offseason, I think it was Robert Woods. And I think Kupp was 2019. Maybe they were both last off. I really don't remember.
Kupp had
regardless. Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, so regardless, they're both under contract for at least a couple years. Mm-hmm. And this is going to help Stafford a lot. The only thing that the Rams really need to do is they really need to make sure that offensive line gets better. They have next to no draft picks for the next forever. So they're going to have to take care of a lot in free agency, and I don't know how much cap room they're going to have with Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald and Stafford and Kupp and Woods and. These are all their big contracts that I can remember off the top of my head. So
sure. Yeah, I was going to bring up Donald.
they're really going starts and scrubs on this with this team, you know.
But I think they all realize that it's a short term, I guess, window to use.
Yeah, most windows,
use an overused term.
Well, I mean, most Super Bowl windows are
short. That's kind of what I was getting at earlier about the aggressive moves. So I think I'm a Stafford fan. Both me and you are, obviously. So I'm super excited for him because I think this team, to your point, is only how do I put it, a couple of personnel areas away from potentially being best in the league. Like literally. Like I think Stafford's that good. And this
for sure. Defense. So here's an idea I just had. So for the longest, I mean, like the last 2-3 years, the Rams have really tried to bend more of a running team, like kind of more of a run first sort of team.
Oh yeah.
When available, you know, with Gurley, they were definitely kind of doing that towards the end of last year when Cam Akers this past season. That is.
Yeah, we're definitely
with Cam Akers kind of coming on.
And we're getting some Robert Woods talk too. Yeah, like that's what I've got to say about Woods and whatnot. Go ahead.
So could this turn into maybe not so much as a run-heavy team when you actually have a very, very competent quarterback behind center and that can just kind of sling the ball kind of to wherever he wants on the field? And I mean, you could totally see I don't know. I don't want to use the term air raid offense, but
no, absolutely.
You know, it could just be become real pass happy, and especially if they're not getting the ball. You know, I mean, the Rams at times they kind of struggled to run the ball this past season.
Yeah.
They had some successes. Don't get me wrong, but there are also games where they really struggled too, and it really would have been great if they had a quarterback that could really just take the team on his shoulders and put the game away with his arm. And Goff's kind of not that guy, unfortunately. Because I've seen him make really good throws, but he can't do it on a consistent basis.
He's shown you. We all know who Goff is at this point. Let's not. Yeah, we all know.
He's an okay quarterback.
I think there's kind of a theme between these next two shows, these receiver shows. You'll see a couple times there's guys on the same team.
Next episode, there's a
bunch. Yeah,
3 teams that have bunches.
Yeah. So and there's
two with bunches,
and there's a couple today. So it just shows you that I think Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp will probably be on this list next year when we do this show. Both of them will be in the top 24, if not the top 12 together.
I think that they could both be in the top 12 together.
Because to your point, they showed us a year and a half or 2 years ago, I believe, that offense can be explosive, and Goff played well during that regular season, and as you said, he played horrible in the Super Bowl. So I firmly believe this offense is going to rise with the tides. I think Stafford is a veteran, first and foremost, but also very armed. He's got great arm talent, always has. He's got a quick release. It's going to be beautiful to watch. And then on the other side of the ball, you put Aaron Donald and his contract, but also his dominance. That's the recipe for a Super Bowl. This is a Kansas City type of formula. Although I understand Stafford's on the down, other side of the hill on his career, but he's still can be elite. And he's not super mobile either. So no, that's fair. He's not Mahomes. I didn't mean to make that reference. I'm just saying when all those parts of a great team are working together, like Kansas City wasn't always best at defense. They were like 15th, but they were so good at taking the ball away, and that offense was explosive. Just like I think LA will be. LA will be very explosive.
Yep. All right, let's start with some wide receivers. You got our first slide ready to roll?
Yes, sir.
Rock and roll. Mm-hmm. Okay. Our number one wide receiver, of course, is Davante Adams. He missed 2.5 games this year, but I mean, look at his stats right there. Like 115 receptions on 149 targets, over 1,300 yards, 18 touchdowns. I mean, he had more I think he hit over 20 if you include postseason. In fact, I think it was like 21. He did lose a fumble. But he got just over 300 fantasy points. Had he played the entire season with Aaron Rodgers, oh boy, it would have been. It maybe wouldn't have been historical, but it would have been really close. I think really close.
Mm-hmm.
As you notice, if you're watching on YouTube this week, I threw an ADP in here too because the last two running back shows. we were kind of struggling to be like, where was this guy drafted again? So I figured I'd throw it onto the slide. That's that way people can kind of be like, and that's supposed to be, that is not oh yeah, okay. He was drafted 11th overall, not
correct
round 11.1. You know, that's what that number is. Sorry. I was like, what the heck? Okay. 11th overall was his ADP. I don't really have much to say other than he only had 3 games under 10 points. One of those was the Packers week 6 dud against the Bucks. You know, the Bucks had another good game last week. Was it last week already? Yeah, last week against the Bucks in the NFC Championship. I was really rooting for Rodgers and the Packers. I know you've been posting some joke memes about.
Did I?
Yeah, you did about Rodgers. Like the Packers and so one of the guys I work with, he was saying, I don't want to get off topic too much, but he was saying that the Packers have almost 30 years of Hall of Fame quarterbacking between Favre and Aaron Rodgers. They have 3 Super Bowl appearances and 2 Super Bowl victories in that time frame. And this guy's a Bears fan, but he's like, I'm not trying to talk any trash about the either one of those quarterbacks because they're actually really, really great. The problem is that it's not necessarily the quarterbacks in that time. It's more of the management of the team, you know, of what the team has done to not help these 2 quarterbacks. It's like you have almost 30 years of Hall of Fame quarterbacking and you only have 2 Super Bowls to show for it. That means that you have done something horribly wrong with the rest of your team.
Yep. I couldn't agree more.
You know,
they've come under fire.
Granted, Favre went to back-to-back Super Bowls, I believe. Lost one, won one. I think he lost one and then won.
He beat New England.
And then he lost to Bledsoe. He beat New England, and then he lost to the John Elway Broncos.
Thank you. Good call.
I believe.
Right.
I believe that's how that went down.
And then Broncos win again. Falcon. Okay, yeah, you're good.
Yeah,
good call.
And then yep. But so you know, it's just kind of like, and this past out like the 2020 NFL draft. You are in win now mode. You had a pretty solid defense already. You had Aaron Rodgers. You had Devontae Adams.
Yeah.
You had Aaron Jones, and then you kind of just, you were looking towards the future, which is great, but at the same time, it's like maybe you should have shored up the defense, maybe gotten Aaron Rodgers another weapon in the draft.
That defense is actually pretty darn good, but yeah, you're right.
And tried to win this year, maybe next year. You're looking 5 years down the road for absolutely no reason.
Couldn't agree more.
You're worrying about having another Hall of Fame quarterback on your roster potentially, and it's like, why don't you worry about making the current Hall of Fame quarterback you have happy and want to stay with you until he retires, and don't mismanage this situation like you did with Brett Favre.
Yeah, you said it right there. I think mismanagement is the term, and I'll expound upon Davante individually here in a second, but I want to talk about the Packers real quick. Yeah, you're right. And coming from the perspective of, I guess you could say the majority of fans out there that root for a team that isn't as successful as even the Packers or the Steelers or the Chiefs or all these, you know, Patriots, obviously, it's kind of, it feels kind of good to pick on them but it's also the truth. You know, they have been mismanaged. And that's past draft was a perfect example. And going into what we'll hear chatter this offseason, speaking of Davante Adams, is what happens with Rodgers. Like, I've only read one little blurb and I dismissed it. And this is going to be the time of year for lies, off-season lies. But, you know, I already read something about Rodgers isn't happy.
He wants more money.
Oh, is that what it is? Is it money this time? Oh, gosh. Yeah. Okay. Well, point is, let's keep an eye on that. But to Josh's point, it's been a little tumultuous. It's been mismanaged. But in fantasy terms, let's hope we see Rodgers back and Davante will dominate. Speaking of, as you said, historical, you hesitated for a minute. When I was writing up my notes, immediately referenced Michael Thomas's 2019 season. To put things in perspective, Davante had as many targets as Michael Thomas had. I'm sorry. Davante had as many targets as Michael Thomas had receptions last year.
Exactly.
That's 149. Yeah, I mistyped it. My bad. Obviously, Thomas only had 9 touchdowns. Saints like to run it in the end zone, red zone a lot. And of course, Adams got 18. But get this, they score practically the same amount of fantasy points, literally 0.1 difference. But Adams played, as you said, did you say 2.5 less games?
Yeah.
Or 2. Yeah, because it was 2.5. So just a fun, crazy statistical difference between similarities in 2 historical seasons. I think it was historical. Absolutely. Go ahead.
That 2.5 games too was it kind of stung a little bit because he got hurt halfway through week 2, missed week 3 and 4, and then week 5 was the Packers bye, and so it seemed like it was longer.
Big chunk. It felt like a 5-game chunk instead of 2.5.
Yeah, it just felt like a bigger chunk because you throw that bye week in there and you're like, ah.
But then you see that,
and then in week 6 rolls around and the Packers play the Bucks and they kind of they were like jet lagged or something and they just didn't show up to play.
Yep.
And so it felt like it was like you're like, man, now I'm missing out on another week of Davante Adams. But then really the rest of the season was just A-okay. Like you were just super happy to have him.
Domination, exactly.
Yeah, I tried to
they did it for good reason.
Trade for him after the Bucks game. I was like,
nice.
Me some Davante.
Nice attempt.
I was lowballing it too. I was trying to steal him. I was.
Yeah, but they obviously held back on him for good reason. They knew they'd be making a playoff run. But as far as the folks around him, I only see the upgrade at tight end in Robert Tonyan helping Rodgers and Adams next year. I also saw Scantling show up and win his matchups later on in the year because schematically speaking, he would get matched up single a lot, and he's a fast guy.
I don't think that MVS is under contract for next year, but
good point.
I think if you could bring him back for cheaper,
a cheap 2 or 3 year deal.
Yeah, and if the Packers could get a more reliable underneath guy, and then just have MVS be kind of like that long bomb field stretching guy because he's really fast.
No, that's exactly what I'm getting at.
He doesn't have elite speed, but
he worked on his technique because I saw some hand fighting. He looked good. He looked good in that playoff.
He just needs to catch. Yeah. He just needs to catch the darn ball like on a more consistent basis.
Yeah, he was.
If he can put that brain to hand to ball connection together consistently, the dude could actually be elite. If he could do that, I don't see it happening. But
I think he can be elite in the role that he plays. I don't think he's necessarily a 1 or maybe even a 2. But in that offense, being that he's on the field a lot, you got to remember that too. 3 wide receivers, they run him a ton because, as you said, he's good. Yeah. So he just needs to put it together. But I'm excited if he does. And I think Tonyan, I think they love Tonyan. Am I pronouncing it correctly? They love him, and I do too. And I think he's just he's rising with the tides of the offense is what I'm trying to say.
I think Tonyan has some potential staying power unless they give Aaron Rodgers some more help in this year's draft. I think Tonyan has some definite staying power for next season. Ditto. But it's been really hard to really hang your hat on a Packers tight end. Okay, so that's been Green Bay Packers talk. All right, we're out, Chris. We're done. That has been amazing Green Bay Packers. We'll catch you all next week when we're actually talking about wide receivers 2 through 12.
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
I'm joking, of course. Let's move on to Tyreek Hill here.
That was perfect. Actually,
we just spent like 10 minutes on Davante Adams.
I know. Well, Packers, so even though he'll probably be right where he is right now next in the draft next year, number 1.
All right, let's move on to Tyreek Hill. Of course, he's number 2. As we mentioned, like 2, 3, 4, 10 years ago when we did the 2020 wrap up show. We have Tyreek Hill here. We kind of touched on him a lot. He did miss week 17. He is, of course, the number 2 wide receiver. Anyways, so like I said, he had 135 targets. He had 87 receptions. That's not a ton, but being a possession guy isn't exactly Tyreek Hill's game. He's, the dude is crazy fast. It is ridiculous how fast this guy is. And he's so strong too. Like, oh man.
Low center of gravity.
I'm not trying to say that I have a man crush on Tyreek Hill by any stretch of the imagination here, but I mean, did you see the guy on the sidelines and you're like, man, this guy is ripped. You kind of have to be when you're like, I don't know, 5'7" or.
Well, when you're playing at that level, you have to take care of your body, and he obviously does.
He had over 1,200 yards, 15 touchdowns. That's a lot of points right there. Attempts for 123 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. That's they and a lot of that was probably like jet sweeps and stuff like that. They
Absolutely.
don't usually line him up in the backfield, but he's just fast enough that he makes those jet sweeps work. It's weird when teams try and do a jet sweep with a slower wide receiver, and I'm like, why are you doing it with that guy of any guy in your team?
Mm-hmm.
It's bizarre. It's
well,
so bizarre.
You can liken it to Kelsey. Speaking of the Chiefs, Kelsey getting those goal line pitches, shovel passes. It's a pass technically, but it's like a run.
Yeah, that's different though.
But it's closer to the line of scrimmage, is all I'm saying. So it's more of a blocker thing and a bigger back type of thing. Hill doesn't do that. You're right.
I don't really have a lot to say about Tyreek Hill. I mean, he had a bit of a dud game against Buffalo in week 6, and again in week 16. I wonder if he got a little banged up in week 16 because he didn't have a very good game against Atlanta, and then he didn't play in week 17. And if it was and I think he kind of did get a little banged up, and they just kind of held him out because the Chiefs weren't really playing for a whole lot at that point, and also, why potentially re-aggravate or make an injury worse by playing him in a meaningless Week 17 game.
Yeah,
when we're trying to go back-to-back Super Bowls.
Absolutely.
Like I said, I really don't have much else to say about Tyreek Hill. He's really good. I was definitely I've been really a big doubter of his. Just because of his size. Like, I know he's really fast and everything, but I'm over that. Like, you want to take Tyreek Hill in the first round next year, go for it. He's not gonna get you
for sure.
He's not gonna get you 120 catches or anything like that, but he is going to score probably double-digit touchdowns again next season, outside of injury, of course. He's gonna get you over 1,200 yards next year. And this season too, he had a lot more games. He only had like one super explosive, like nuclear game where he scored like 50 some points against the Bucks, fantasy points, that is.
Right.
But he had a lot of games over 20 points this year. So he was just a lot more consistent. It wasn't boom bust like it was not last year in his, when he was the wide receiver 1 2 years ago. In that season, he had like 4 or 5 games over 30 points, but he also had like
a couple of single
but he also
digits,
had like 5 or 6 games under 10 points.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. No, if it weren't
speaking of which, we forgot to do this at the top. We are doing this with half PPR scoring. Always half PPR
my fault.
scoring.
Yeah. Forgot.
Just for people who, this is only episode number 5 or something of the pod / YouTube. So
something like that.
Anyone just tuning in. Half PPR
for whatever, for the sake of
I did want to say too that Hill did have 6 drops, so that's a pretty big number right there. It doesn't sound like a lot,
a bit high for 87 catches. We'll put it that way.
Well, and then the fact that like it has to be a very glaringly obvious like mistake for the NFL to count it as a drop.
Right. Yeah.
So there were other ones that like they could have been like, well, maybe he could have caught that sort of thing too, but just didn't count it.
It didn't count as a drop. Yeah. I don't know. Yep. I just have that he's arguably the best wide receiver in the league in terms of fit. I think that's important to put that last bit on there in terms of fit, because he complements this offense. Fit. Yeah, he complements the offense and Mahomes so well. Like Mahomes just buys a little extra time, and you just can't cover this guy for that long. And he's matured, I think, and I'm not going to justify what the guy allegedly did, but he's matured. What seems like off the field,
he did, but man, right? If it is what I think it is, so not good.
Right, but I also want to make the point that he's matured on the field. It seems as though he's matured off the field. No, not a lot of chatter coming out of Chiefs camp, but I want to make the point in terms of fantasy that he's matured on the field. To your point, if it weren't for what Davante Adams did this year, because Davante was banged up quite a bit in 2019, like we were worried about Davante's health, Tyreek would have been the most consistent wide receiver in the whole league, both in fantasy and reality terms. Yeah, the volume isn't, in the 90s and 100 catches like you'd like, but that explosiveness and him bringing up his floor this year in fantasy, Yeah, I would have no problem with somebody taking him as the wide receiver one next year. Or in this coming.
I don't know. I don't know about the wide receiver one, but
I wouldn't. I wouldn't in a full PPR. I think in a full PPR, you definitely put Adams up there, and maybe even Diggs. But still, like I said, I wouldn't have a problem with it.
I wouldn't. I think it's Adams, and then it's clearly Tyreek Hill, and then you can make an argument for who you want your number 3 to be. I know who my number 3 is. We will talk about him here in a few minutes.
Mm-hmm. That's all I've got.
I think it's probably Diggs. Okay, our number 3 on this list though is Stefon Diggs. He didn't miss any games. There's that. I mean, these are the numbers that are just I never saw coming with Josh Allen and the Bills. 166 targets, 123 receptions. I mean, the 1,500 yards that's more than I expected, but that number doesn't quite blow me away. It's the targets and receptions that are just wow.
Yep, the volume, the consistency. Yeah.
That mean 8 touchdowns. It all adds up to 265 fantasy points. ADP 72nd overall.
I think there's a typo. I think it's 127 receptions. FYI.
Anyway, what?
127 receptions.
Oh well, whatever. Pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, okay. So point being, over 120 receptions, like
elite, man.
123, 127, like we're still definitely in the same.
No, I just want to point out in case a viewer was to make sure.
Yeah, I still have my Josh Allen question marks. He certainly had a very good season, and he was very Yeah, I do. I just it's one season, and I don't know if Are you taking Stefon Diggs potentially in the first round next year?
I'd like to see the list of running backs.
Or
off the top of my head, I'd say no.
I'd say you're sitting at pick 2 in the second round, and you took a running back in the first.
So like near the turn type of thing.
Yeah. Let's say you took Todd Gurley,
and let's assume Devontae
is
off the board,
and Devontae and Tyreek Hill are gone.
Oh, and both? Yes, absolutely.
Wow.
I mean,
even though you drafted Todd Gurley in the first round.
Oh, is that what you said? I wasn't listening.
I was like, he did not catch that at all.
No, I didn't. I was already down my thought path of. I'll say this much: there's some names after Diggs here that definitely intrigue me. However, the way you posed the question was if you're at that 202-ish near the turn and you've already taken a running back and the top 2 wide receivers are off the board, yes, I'm definitely considering the third wide receiver on my board. And at this time, I'd have to say it's probably Diggs because I don't really have the misgivings you have for Allen.
I'm not trying to hate on Josh Allen. I'm just skeptical. That's it.
Yeah, we're talking about top of the list guys. You're not hating on him. This is splitting hairs area, right?
I'm not. He's not Tom Brady. I don't want Tom Brady to succeed. I want him to retire. Never hear about him ever again. Josh Allen, I want him to be great for years to come. And
so you do like him. You're just a little trepidatious about it. Okay, that's cool. We got to respect
that giant jump in accuracy really brings question marks to me. So
I think Diggs had a lot to do with it, and that's kind of what my notes say.
He did. I got what else do I got here? The only thing that I don't like about Diggs is that those are great numbers and all, but it's only a little over 16.5 points per game. That's but
I think our previous concerns with Diggs in Minnesota with Thielen was consistency. I think
But the part of that was Kirk Cousins and Minnesota wanting to run the ball more. Buffalo not being able to run the ball whatsoever to any sort of efficiency. Buffalo's run game gets going and get a little bit more. I could definitely see those numbers going down. I don't know how it gets going more because I'm not a big fan of their backs, but we're not talking about running backs right now, so don't go into it, please.
Go ahead.
I don't know. I don't got much else to say about Diggs. He's really good.
I was truly impressed by the difference he made. I think Allen deserves a ton of credit for his progress, but Diggs helped loosen things up, I think. He led the league with 127 receptions, as you said, and he proved durable amid doubts. I doubted it. I didn't think he was a durable enough guy. Diggs will be the guy for some time in Buffalo, and they have proven to be a formidable fantasy offense. I think a couple upgrades on the offensive line and in the backfield, and this team could be in the big game next year and greatly help your fantasy team's performance.
For sure.
Yeah, I think he's great.
Do you want to move on to Calvin Ridley here?
For sure.
Calvin Ridley is our number 4 guy. Calvin Ridley, he might be number 4 on this list, but he easily could have been higher. Part of that is Matt Ryan. He has a Julio Jones like fetish or something. In the sense that like Julio Jones there for a while in the beginning and middle of the season, if Julio didn't play, Matt Ryan wasn't very good. Once he got out of that kind of that groove of Julio not being there and to being able to rely on Calvin Ridley, like you can look at it if you look at Calvin Ridley's points towards the end of the season and Matt Ryan's performance towards the end of the season. Like that's definitely where the big chunk of Ridley's success came is once Julio went down and Matt Ryan kind of started to rely on Ridley more, and kind of get over his the hole in his heart that Julio Jones left by not being on the field, and he filled it with Calvin Ridley.
Right. You talking about towards the end of the year?
Yeah. So Ridley had 143 targets, 90 receptions. Some of that was Matt Ryan just being
that catch percentage is poopy. Oh, it's such an awful catch for that volume for 143 targets. That's like 4th or 5th in the league or something.
Yeah. Did a lot with them. Ridley is kind of he's a little bit on the smaller side. He's not Tyreek Hill small, but he's also not Julio Jones tall. He's kind of somewhere in the middle, I believe. I don't know what else to say about Calvin Ridley because a lot of it is what Julio Jones is going to be next year. Is he going to be on the field for a significant number of games? Is he going to be 80% of what Julio Jones has been in the past? Because if that's the case, I don't know if Calvin Ridley is going to put up these numbers again next year.
Well, yeah, exactly. And if so, if Julio is going to be Julio and going to be in and out of the lineup, are they going to be end of year Are they going to be end of year Matt Ryan and Calvin Ridley? Or are they going to be beginning of year Matt Ryan and Calvin Ridley, where it was awful, which is why these numbers look like that catch percentage. But
it's not good.
Ridley's obviously a uber talented guy. That makes it kind of more difficult, but I'm on your side. We have to keep an eye on this situation.
He only missed one game too. That he had only 3 games under 10 points. So there's and a lot of people were talking in preseason 2020 preseason that Calvin Ridley could have a breakout year. He had a breakout year. It could have been better though. That's the thing. Is it easily could have been better, and it could have been a lot worse too.
Yeah, speaking about a guy who could be the one, I don't think me and you were going to sign off on that because we're worried about, as we just said, the situation. But number 4 still, it's crazy. Amidst all that, could have been much better. Could have been much better.
It could have been. Let's move on to our number 5 guy. Number 5 is definitely number 1 in. I'm sorry, who was it that really likes the Texans? That was watching our stream.
Ivert?
Yes, Ivert, number 1 in Ivert's heart, Nuke, or you might know him as DeAndre Hopkins. 160 targets, 115 receptions. That's still a bit of a disparity, but
Agreed.
I can overlook it when you're getting over 100. 1,400 a little over 1,400 yards, only 6 touchdowns. That number I would love to see go up a little bit next year.
And it very well could.
All totaling out to just over 230 points, fantasy points on the year. You took him about 18th off the board. I think you have to be overall pretty happy with having DeAndre Hopkins. I think the reason that he didn't go higher was just what happens if he's not quite what he was in Houston with Kyler Murray. And I think it wasn't I don't think anyone was going to argue talent of him moving to the Cardinals or the talent, whether it's in DeAndre Hopkins or the talent on the quarterback side with Kyler Murray. I think it was more of, well, you still have Larry Fitzgerald there. You have Christian Kirk there. You know, like how was he going to fit into the offense? That's why I was a little hesitant to take him high or put him higher on my mental board for going into last year's fantasy drafts. Right? Are you right there with me?
I am, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but I mean, from day one, Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins they connected. They obviously I don't know if they did some preseason workouts together or whatever, or maybe they just instantly clicked. It was love at first sight with the two of them. Man, now I'm dancing them ballroom dancing together.
Oh goodness. With 10 touchdowns next year, I will envision them ballroom dancing together. Yes.
I honestly I can see that if you're looking, I mean, any one of these guys. I don't know about Calvin Ridley, but 4 out of the top 5 guys that we've talked about here so far could easily, like Devontae Adams could repeat as the number 1 wide receiver next year, but any of these other guys could easily do it too.
Oh, for sure.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
When we hit our number 6 guy, I'm going to put him not in that category, but our number 7 guy could definitely easily be at 2. What else you got to say about Nuke? I don't have much else to say.
Just that the keys are volume and an improved Kyler. The volume is there, as you can see I believe it's 160 targets. So that's not going to be an issue because this offense likes to hurry up 3 and 4 wide receiver sets. And if you see an improved Kyler, I mean, even just a handful of touchdowns here, like we just said, if I see 10 touchdowns from Hawkins, he probably is a wide receiver 1. So, and that floor is nice and high. As you said, any of these guys we're talking about could be, finish in the top 1 or 2. That's all I've got on him. I expect an improved Kyler. So,
the only thing I have to say is that if you look at his game by game points that he scored and everything, is that there's a bit of a dip there in mid season or like mid to like towards the second half of the season, because and the Cardinals never came out and said that there was a problem with Kyler Murray per se, but you could tell that he was having some shoulder issues or something was going on there with Kyler, that he was having some problems getting the ball past like 5-10 yards. So DeAndre Hopkins' numbers dipped during that time, but I could easily see that he's playing in a rough division too. He's got the Rams, and the Seahawks defense gets better. And who's the other team in that division that I'm blanking on?
I'm sorry, Seahawks division. Seahawks, Cardinals,
Rams,
Niners.
And man, I'm so tired.
No, West.
The 49ers. Yeah, and those are all like all those teams of the Seahawks defense improves upon what they became towards the end of the season. Then they're like it's gonna be some rough sledding for DeAndre Hopkins, any of these receivers in this division, but talent usually rises above the competition. So
exactly, yeah. And Jalen Ramsey said as much. They're stroking each other's egos. they're both paying respect to each other, and that they're the best that they go up against. So that's fine. That's it is what it is. DeAndre's among the best.
Yes, he is. Maybe not elite speed, but definitely has elite routes and elite hands, and can really beat you on the catch too.
And worth more than a whatever that was, a 4th round and David Johnson
and a sack of potatoes named David Johnson.
Yeah. All right.
Let's hit our number 6 guy here, and this is I love this picture, and he must do this a lot because there's multiple pictures of Justin Jefferson doing this.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't know what it is of you stumbling across this one rare image.
No, there was unless it was the same pose and from multiple angles. He does this more. He did this maybe more than one game.
Maybe he does it when he scores. I don't even know.
I don't know, man. But this is Justin Jefferson right here. He's our number 6 guy and our first rookie on this. He's the only rookie in today's show. He's one of two rookies in this week's in this week and next week's show. Actually, That's it. Two rookies. So 125 targets, 88 receptions. That disparity is Kirk Cousins right there. Well, that, and you're gonna miss on some long bombs too. It's like 1,400 yards exactly.
Nice. Oh, really? That's so crazy.
8 touchdowns, 2-point conversions. I mean, getting drafted at ADP 126, like that's more or less free.
Yeah.
That's a real late round guy. Okay. So I don't see Justin Jefferson hitting number 6 again next year, and it's not from a lack of talent. It's from an abundance of Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins had actually a very good year. He finished as the QB 11 in fantasy this year.
I don't see him. Interceptions were 12 or 14. Like it was.
They were 11. I think they were very low for Kirk Cousins.
I thought it was still close to 1 per game average, but just under that, like 14. But maybe right, maybe it was 11.
Either way, you talk about Justin Jefferson. I'll look it up because I am curious.
You had mentioned, I think we were still on Ridley or Hopkins, that here in the next couple of guys, you felt there were some that could vault themselves into the top position or 2 or 3. Metcalf could do it, but you said Justin Jefferson couldn't because of Cousins. I initially disagree, just because.
Really?
I don't know. Calvin Ridley, yeah, he's further removed from being a rookie, but he's still young, and he has
13 interceptions for Cousins, by the way.
Okay, so split the difference, kind of, yeah. Very respectable for Cousins. I don't know. They sure love to run the ball, but at the same time, they must move the ball quickly. You know what I mean? Like the defense wasn't great, that's for sure. That's usually kind of a calling card for Minnesota, I feel like, and they were not a good defense. But man, that just to put up the numbers he put up with that many targets, I'm really impressed by him. I think he's the heir apparent. I assume Thielen's there next year. I'm not implying that. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
maybe through more of a dynasty lens, I'm a little higher on him, and that's my fault.
Oh well, for sure.
That's my fault, but I still see a. I don't know. I don't want to say a potential top 5. Yeah, I mean potentially, but maybe I'm not betting on it.
If he would have shut out of the gate, like being really good, like from game 1,
that's where I'm at. Yeah,
do you think he would have won Rookie of the Year?
Absolutely. Well, over Herbert, over a quarterback.
Yeah, I think he could have.
Okay. Yeah, probably.
Because if he would have finished as one of the top 3 wide receivers in the league, as either with touchdowns or yards or whatever, a combination of them, I think he could have gotten Rookie of the Year.
A couple of touchdowns. Well, I think it's only his first year, so we can afford to quote, wait and see. Again, we're in the splitting of hairs conversation. You're more like he's not going to sniff the top 5, probably a top 12 guy, you think? Still?
Yeah, I mean, in my notes here, he did go through some lulls.
Like you said, beginning of the year for sure.
He scored 27 points in week 3. Didn't really do much.
The offense was struggling, especially through the air. It was all Cook. At that part.
He scored a bunch of points in week 7 again, and then didn't really do much until week 10. And then from week 10 to 17, he was averaging 16 points a game. So. And when you look at Diggs, who was averaging 16.85 points a game or something similar to that for the entire season, and Jefferson was getting close to that weeks 10 through 17,
right.
Maybe he could be up. I really don't think that Kirk Cousins can make a wide receiver be the number 1 wide receiver in the league. That's the only reason.
The number 1?
I'm saying,
okay.
Yeah, the number 1.
Not with Thielen there too, and to your point, also not with Mr. Cousins as quarterback. Probably that's fair. But I think we're still both impressed by his season, both Cousins and obviously Jefferson. But yeah, with Thielen there, yes, I think there's a ton of volume to go around, plenty of balls to go around, if you will. But you're right, I don't think he sniffs the number 1. Potentially doesn't sniff the top 5. So
let's move on to number 7 here.
For sure.
Our number 7 wide receiver, and definitely number 1 in my heart, is DK Metcalf. And do you know what this picture is right here? You know what he's doing right there?
He's saving a touchdown. Catching a DB.
I had to get
I don't remember who it was, but he's catching a DB from
Budda
behind.
Baker.
Budda Baker, there you
go. And for people who are listening or watching, like this is the picture that where Budda Baker intercepted Russell Wilson around like the 5-yard line. Maybe it was close. It was really close to the end zone. Budda Baker takes off running, and it looks like it's going to be a pick six. And DK Metcalf comes running down the field, catches up from behind Budda Baker, and tackles him. The Seahawks prevent the Cardinals from scoring a touchdown, and the Cardinals had to kick a field goal instead. I have never seen anyone do anything like this. DK took off, and he's like, that ball was mine, and I am going to get it back.
Yeah, exactly. I think
it was unreal.
Now, obviously, DK would be more inclined to do this. We know he's fast, but also huge. I think it was Larry Allen of the Cowboys. Now, it wasn't a 90-yard pick six like this one was. So you said it right. No, you've never seen anybody quite do exactly this. That's correct. But this was also impressive because it was a big dude chasing down a smaller guy from behind. But no, this play was so beautiful, dude. This DK play was amazing. That's not
it's
one of those things that makes football beautiful to me. You know, I just thought it was cool.
He is one of those guys that like Julio Jones, and maybe not quite to the extent of Calvin Johnson. He's just one of those really big, fast guys that can really just. I mean, he had 129 targets and only 83 receptions, but man, I think he could bring that reception number up and have even more. Like this is probably the last guy on our list today that could end up being the wide receiver number 1 next year.
The last, I probably could sign off on that too.
As far as potential,
I've got one guy and
number 1 overall.
Yeah, I've got one guy that I've got a pretty aggressive take on, but generally I do agree with your take there that
for today.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah,
for this show.
I think I agree because he could. Now it depends how you feel about Lockett, but that's a different show, I believe.
Nope.
It's not. Same show. Sorry, spoiler alert.
There's only one reason. There's only one reason why Lockett's on this in today's show. So, and we'll get to that.
We'll
in a minute.
Get to that, of course. Yeah.
DK has like I was saying, DK has the size, the speed, the talent. He's hooked to a great quarterback, a really great quarterback, Russell Wilson, who we both really love.
Who's not going anywhere anytime soon.
You know, if it depends on how the running backs shake out and everything for next year, but I wouldn't have if I got to if I was sitting there drafting at the end of the first round and all the running backs I love are gone and Devontae Adams is gone, I'm looking at DK Metcalf, dude. I'm not lying. I love him that much.
It's aggressive, but
it's aggressive, but
we both agree that the potential to be the number 1 is there. The potential there, all the signs.
I mean,
especially if you don't see an improved defense, like if you just see a no improvement or a very moderate improvement. Yeah, you could still see a butt ton of volume.
Yeah, he did have a bit of a drop off towards the end of the season and weeks. Yeah, the offense in general did.
They got
weeks 13 through 17. DK didn't even hit 9 points per game, and that's not his fault. It was just there was something shifted in that team in the second half of the season, and I'm not really sure what happened.
It was almost like a philosophy change. Like they planned it. Like we're going to play like a historic record-setting pace offense for the first
12 games.
12. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then just throttle down and run it more, be conservative. I don't get it either.
It was so bizarre, and it was like the reverse of in Rocky 2 how like they switch Rocky to become a right-handed hitter, and then like halfway through the boxing match, Rocky switches back to being a lefty, and then really pummels Apollo. It's like they did that in reverse, where they started out with their dominant hand, and then they switched to their non-dominant hand, and it was
did he break his hand or something? Isn't that why he did it?
Who?
Rocky? Or was it a strategic change?
It was to protect his eye.
Oh,
because
it was injury, but it wasn't his hand. I understand. Okay.
Yeah. It was
frustrating.
I have no idea what the reason behind that was.
Mhm.
It was just they weren't fooling anyone with it. They were trying to run the ball more with a really anemic run game, and they were losing games because of it too. It
Yeah.
just I have no idea what happened in Seattle in the second half of last season, and I hope they look at that the season as a whole and they just like, okay, well that's what was working for us. We were scoring a lot of points because we had to, but at the same time we were coming out of the gate like just lighting the world on fire, and people were having to play catch up with us.
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't they keep doing that? I have no idea.
Why didn't they? I agree. I mean,
I guess I'm sort of making a case of why maybe you shouldn't take DK at like the end of the first round, but not for me. I just think the talent is really there and the quarterback is really there, and I don't really feel like and granted, I was really looking.
I hope we're doing into his ADP
PPR here. Yeah. We're doing half PPR here, but this dude was in a full PPR. He was getting at least 18 points a game through the first 10 weeks. So, it's like,
well, I mean, despite Lockett and the quote throttling down that we're talking about, the not letting Russ cook we're talking about, he was still 15th in targets, and I think that's on your side of the argument. I think that proves your stance. But you're right. We have to talk about the presence of Lockett, and we have to talk about the odd shift in offensive philosophy in the 3/4 through the season or whatever. It's interesting. I don't get it, but I'm still on your side that the talent and the quarterback is there, and he could very well finish in the top 3, really. But it's again circles all the way back around to Lockett. Should I expound upon him now while we're here? And just kind of gloss over him later. It's not too much I've got on him. I just got that.
Let's hold the Lockett love for it. We won't. It won't. It's not very long.
It's just cool. We'll wait till he comes up.
Let's move on to number 8 here. Number 8 is Adam Thielen. This guy definitely helped him win a championship. What was it? 2-3 years ago? I think he helped him win 2 championships.
2 probably. Oh wow. Okay.
I think it was 3 years ago, and. It was 3 years ago, and he helped me win 2 championships that year.
Wow.
Anyways, Adam Thielen. So I got some Adam Thielen love. He's had 108 targets. That's a bit on the low side. He only missed 1 game. Weird. I thought he missed more. Only 74 receptions. I think some of this was the emergence of Justin Jefferson, because last season these numbers were. He did, and also the 14 touchdowns is what brings him into the top 10 here. That's where it's at right there.
Big plays.
He's the first guy on our list with under 1,000 yards, but the reason why he's up here is those 14 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And he was reasonably efficient with that catch rate. I think it's about 16.
I think he was having a bit of a hamstring issue throughout the season too. I know like I said, I know he only missed 1 game, but I think he was a little hobbled with some hamstring issues throughout the season. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that was the in vogue injury this year. So,
Mm-hmm.
So he had 6 games under 10 points too. I mean, and 2 of those 6 games were against Detroit too. So,
well, I think that's a big.
Those are
one
of them definitely was a Dalvin Cook game.
I was about to say those are run-based attacks. Those are run-based game plans, is what I'm trying to say. So, but at the same time, I don't want to take too much away from your point that you're right. You lose some statistical, you regress a little in those 14 touchdowns, and not so good. Granted, I think the yards will come up with a healthy season. But again, we were concerned about Cousins with. Jefferson a little. You can see Thielen drop out of the top 12 easily.
These guys, I mean, even with Dalvin Cook getting over 1,300 rushing yards this year, and whatever obscene number of touchdowns he got, these guys still ended up in the top 10. So
I know. Going back to that theme of players,
they could easily do it again too.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know. I don't have much else to say other than it was just like his scoring's all over the map. Like he had a good game and a bad game against the Packers defense. He had a good game and a bad game against the Bears defense. Both of those are good defenses. It's just like you look at his scoring, it was just all over the map. Like he had some bad games against bad defenses. He had good games against good defense. It's just it was really hard to like kind of pick where he was going to hit and where he was going to miss as far as being an Adam Thielen manager this past season.
Yeah.
And like I said, a lot of it's probably just because of Justin Jefferson, especially
Absolutely.
in the second half of the season.
In the only league that I managed Thielen, it was more of a necessity. It's a deeper league. It's the Dynasty League we spoke about. So I weathered the ups and downs, but they were definitely there. The last thing I had on him was that, give them credit where credit is due. They had, just like Seattle, they had 2 top 10 fantasy receivers. That's crazy this season. Probably won't repeat
Seattle. Tyler Lockett comes with a big asterisk, and we'll get to him in just a second. We're almost there with him. We're almost there.
I know.
Let's move on to number 9 with AJ Brown. This guy, he missed weeks 2 and 3. That was it. He did have 4 games under 10 points. Part of the only 70 receptions was missing those 2 games. He had some return yards. He's the first guy on our list that had significant return yards. There was a couple others that had like 10, but it was mainly he got a punt return for a touchdown. That's why I threw that in there, because he actually scored 12 total touchdowns. AJ Brown, how do you? I don't have a lot written down about him. I mean, I really like him as a player. You're more on the Ryan Tannehill bandwagon than I am. I don't know. Give me some AJ Brown love, I guess. I really don't have a lot written down about him. So he's just kind of okay. I'd love to have him I don't know. Do you want him as your wide receiver 1 next year?
I think if you're getting a guy like him and you're getting another guy, in the following round or 2, that's of a similar ilk. You know what I mean? Like an AJ Brown and a Robert Woods, maybe. I like that combo. Maybe better than having one of the top 2 guys and then like a bottom 24 receiver. Does that make sense? It just depends.
So you would rather have
more
AJ Brown, Robert Woods than a Devontae. Let's even go Stephon Diggs and DJ Moore.
Yes. I think I agree with that statement. Yes, I do. Where were we? I lost the guy because I was looking at other guys. He may not get the volume that Diggs.
You've been eyeballing other men. I mean, you're cheating on AJ Brown here.
Yeah, other receivers for sure. I do like Jefferson a lot. But anyway, no, AJ Brown may not get the volume that Diggs and Adams do, but he makes big plays. 12th in yards per catch with 15.4. Of the wide receivers with over 100 targets, Brown is tied for 2nd in yards per target, behind only Justin Jefferson, and tied with your guy DK and DJ Moore. Big play guys. Yeah, big play guys. Ryan Tannehill has proved himself this season as far as I'm concerned. Again, I think fit is a great word to use here because I think some of the love I throw on Tannehill gets misconstrued as calling him elite or something crazy like that.
I didn't say that.
No, you didn't.
I wasn't even implying it either. Actually,
sure. Well, maybe Ryan Tannehill love sometimes I think goes a little too far, and maybe people misconstrue it as elite or like an MVP guy. No, I just think he fits the offense. I think he's a great play action quarterback. I thought he was bad at being a quarterback in terms of reading the field, going through progressions. I think he's proven a lot of that wrong. No, he's not lining up like Pat Mahomes with nobody in the backfield, running a hurry up and just scoring like that. But with the help of Henry and a good offensive line and I don't know, okay defense at times, he showed me that he's a great fit for this offense, and they've shown him some love in the front office. And I think AJ Brown is still in the conversation for, a very good fantasy receiver. But, as I said, Henry's there and the run is there. So we have to worry about that volume a little.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at.
Let's move on to number 10. We finally get to talk about Tyler Lockett. I mean, Chris has just been, he's been champing at the bit over there. Just like, when are we going to talk about Tyler Lockett? Why aren't we talking about Tyler Lockett?
I didn't mean for it to come off like
Tyler
that.
Lockett. Let's talk about Tyler Lockett.
Yeah. It's weird how it ties in with this 2 teams having these 4 guys in this list is all. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So Tyler Lockett here, I mean, he's really the first guy on our list that has been kind of, he has 100 receptions, but he only has 1,000 yards. And a lot of it is because of like 2 or 3 big, ginormous weeks. That's where the chunks of his fantasy points. Like, yeah, he also got catches throughout the year and everything, obviously to get to 100. But I mean, it was. Let me see here. I mean, he had the big week, the really big week, week 3 against Dallas. Sorry, but 32.5 points. Week 7, this was the enormous week, the 46.4 points at Arizona, and then week 17 with 27 points. Then he had 10 games under 10 fantasy points. 10 games under 10 fantasy
double
points.
Digits under double digits.
Yeah. That's not good, and that's the only reason why he's number 10 on this list.
Yeah.
It was those 3 games, and then some like sprinkling of like not really usable games throughout the rest of the season. Like,
yep.
You had 6 games where you could potentially even like you were happy that you started him. That's not a good hit rate right there. It still amazes me that he hit 100 catches this year.
I think what amazes me is how some of his statistics bear out him looking like he's efficient, but he wasn't in terms of how he got there. Just like you said with fantasy points, but also like, where do I have it here? Despite both Seattle receivers having blazing speed, Lockett averaged significantly less yards per catch. As we talked about, DK was very high at 15.7, 10.5 for Lockett. That's not a quote big play guy.
It's not a bad number, but
it's not bad, but it's also not a quote big play guy like DJ Moore with 18. That's crazy.
I mean, like what I think is weird is when people say, when you say yards per catch or yards per reception, well, that's not yards at the catch. Is when I think that's what a lot of people think that it is. It's like just because DK was averaging 15 yards per reception, well, it might have been a 5 yards at the catch, but he then muscled his way for 10 more yards.
Yeah, and he's fast too.
Yeah, exactly. He's fast and he's also big, whereas Tyler Lockett's fast, but he's also
and that came out to approximately 250 more yards than Lockett. Similar targets, 132 to Lockett's 129. Oh, I'm sorry, reverse that. 132 for Lockett to DK's 129, resulting in Lockett being much more efficient percentage-wise with a catch percentage of 75.8, which is great. Among the league's best at wide receiver. But again, this is deceiving, and I think we touched on it when we talked about DK and Russell being allowed to cook or not. You have to be concerned about the volume. You have to be concerned about Lockett regressing, because I think what these couple stats we've mentioned and how he finished fantasy-wise and what you said about his inconsistency for 10 games is DK's clearly the guy that they want. So if you lose,
I think so. I think he's clearly the guy that Russell Wilson is like first looking at too.
For sure.
It might not have been that way the first like 2 or 3 weeks, but as the season went along, like you could watch some Seattle games, and it was like DK was the first look.
For sure.
And maybe
we were a little concerned at the beginning of the year. Yeah, you're right, but no, it's clear now.
And sometimes it was almost to Russell Wilson's detriment that he was almost like looking at DK too long.
Oh, okay, I understand. Yeah.
Like he could have maybe been looking at David Moore or a tight end or something. Like, like I know DK is really good and I love him to death, but I mean, I would have his man babies if I could. That's not true.
I'm good. That's all I got on him. Yeah. We're on the same page there with Lockett.
I think he's the first guy on this list that I really don't see replicating this season.
He's a great example of don't believe, statistics only are a medium. If you look at stats guy, but it's misleading. He's not efficient. He's not.
If you just look at the end of the season totals, you're like, wow, this guy was really good. But then you start looking at individual games, and then you kind of start at least in our case,
fantasy points, targets.
I'm not gonna, but I mean, like I remember how some of these games went too, and it's just like,
I got your eyeball. Yeah, like you actually saw it. Yeah, especially DK. You like to watch your fair share of DK. Yeah. No, I think. I agree. DK's probably arrows pointing up, and Tyler's probably pointing down next year. But we'll see when we get down to draft time, August and stuff.
Let's move on to number 11 here. Number 11 is Mike Evans. Mike Evans is not the guy that we thought was going to end up on this list preseason. Speaking of a disparity between targets and receptions and everything, 109 targets, 70 receptions, just barely over 1,000 yards with 1,006 yards, 13 touchdowns. That
saved him. Those touchdowns saved him.
Yep, exactly. But do you remember, like, I think it was like through the first 5 weeks, Mike Evans had like 6 or 7 touchdowns, and he had, in like one of those weeks, he only had 2 yards and he had 2 touchdowns.
I do. Now that you say that, I do. That was the stat line, 2 for 2.
2 catches, 2 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Yep. And probably never see that again. The important thing to mention there, now that you say that, Josh, I think, is that, to me, when I see 13, 14, 15 touchdowns statistically, I'm like, okay, I'm going to expect a regression next season. You know, and not always. That's what I'm getting at here with Mike Evans. I think he's one of those players that you can probably rely on every season for double-digit touchdowns. Like, he's just the size. He's going to get targeted. Now he's got a more accurate quarterback. He's probably more dependable in that category than most. So that's the point I'm trying to make. And I think it bears out right here in this stat line that you just read off.
There's also the hands issue with Mike Evans too, and that's part of the reasons why he's didn't catch 39 of his targets. He's not the greatest. He does not have the greatest hands.
Yeah.
But he's a big guy, and he really excels, and he's a big guy, and he excels in the red zone. And
that's where I'm getting. Yeah, that's where I'm saying he's going to be getting a red zone target every year.
And he has decent speed too. If he could just catch the darn ball, like.
I feel, let me go back real quick. Did you? Oh, okay. He's dancing. I thought maybe you had an image of him like, putting his hands on his helmet. I dropped the ball. Darn it.
Some of these pictures I chose because, like, the DK Metcalf one, I wanted that picture, even though it didn't turn out to be like.
Dude, you've nailed it every time. You've nailed it every time so far. Good pictures.
Some of these pictures though are just like, this was the best looking picture I could get to.
Best high quality res image. Yeah. I got you. We got to go with what we got. But I don't have a ton more on him. I think we hit on it with the red zone target stuff is going to be there probably each year. However, you'd expect some inconsistency because of, number one, he likes to drop it. Number two, he's got mouths to feed there, so to speak. Mouths.
He's got competition in the wide receiver core. And even if they lose either AJ Brown or not AJ Brown,
Antonio Brown.
Antonio,
I had to think for a second too.
If they lose Antonio Brown and or Chris Godwin, there's always Scotty Miller there, and Scotty Miller's really, really fast. He's the fastest guy on that team right now. So if they lose Chris Godwin,
awesome. That play was awesome.
What's that?
That play was awesome to Scotty Miller in the playoff game. Did you see how he lined? His stance was like almost like a sprinter. He was low to the ground. Like usually you're kind of standing upright with your arms kind of dangling, looking down the line of scrimmage. He was like huddled down, like pow, shot out of a cannon. That defender was not ready for that guy coming straight at him with that speed. It was an awesome play.
But apparently Scotty Miller challenged Tyreek Hill to a foot race too.
Oh, is this some online thing? I didn't like some Twitter thing or something.
It might have been some Twitter thing or something. I'm like, I don't know.
I didn't know about this.
Dude, you better be really sure about yourself because Tyreek Hill is crazy fast.
To be clear, for all our listeners and viewers at home, I am not on that side of the equation at this point. I'll take Tyreek Hill, but I'm not basing it off that one play.
I know. Okay.
We're on. That's funny because that play. I mean, that one play is eye-catching, but I'm not basing it off one play.
I don't have much else to say about Mike Evans. He's been in a wide receiver one in the past too. I don't think he was last season, but he was 2 years ago.
He was also getting the volumes in with Jameson just ripping it.
Yeah. But I mean, like, so it's not a fluke that it's not necessarily a fluke that he's on this list.
Again, the touchdowns, the red zone targets. Yep, he's going to be in the leaders.
I think he had some more yardage with Jameis, but
for sure, I think he sniffed 13 or 1,500 in one of those seasons for sure.
And he also had double-digit touchdowns
again. Yep.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's move on to our last guy here. We got Allen Robinson. He's he is, man. I really like Allen Robinson. I'm not gonna lie. Like I loved his talent even when he was with Jacksonville. I questioned his decision to go to the Bears. I know we've talked about this in the past. I don't really want to quite go over that again.
Sure.
But I love this number right here. 151 targets. A big disparity in receptions and targets, but when you take into account that your quarterbacks were Mitch Trubisky and Nick Foles, like I'm willing to forgive that. And 1,250 yards. I'd like to see more touchdowns with better quarterback. The number could easily jump. I don't want to play the speculation game, but I would just say that if my Colts could hammer down a quarterback and bring this guy in too, I would love this so much. So
perfect. That'd be a great fit. Yep.
But I don't know. I don't see him returning to the Bears next season unless the Bears somehow secure a Deshaun Watson. I don't really know. I don't really know that there's any other quarterbacks on the move this season of any significance other than Deshaun Watson at this point. Assuming Stafford is actually going to the Rams and it wasn't just smoke and mirrors.
Oh, no.
That report that came out last night.
I'm going to assume not, yeah. You're saying, is he going to hold out? Is he under contract?
No, he's not under contract with the Bears.
Oh, for as soon as this season? Wow, okay. Yeah. This coming season, you know what I mean? Oh, wow.
No, his contract's done. He's played out his contract.
Yeah, no, he's out of there probably.
Okay.
But he managed, with all that being said, a 67.5 catch percentage is amazing for what he had to deal with, and to still finish at number 12 in fantasy.
Yeah,
it just
with only 6 touchdowns too.
It should reinforce the fantasy believers in Allen Robinson, the believers in the talent, that we're on the right track. That he is.
If he goes to a team with a semi-competent quarterback next year,
that's what exactly.
Say.
Who needs one besides? I guess Colts don't have one at this point.
I'm trying to think here.
I am too.
Say the Texans. Okay. Say the Texans keep Deshaun Watson. They make him happy by getting Allen Robinson. Boom, right there.
Done.
Got to be
agreed.
Got to be in the second.
I don't think it happens though. I think Watson's gone. But that's a good example of a team if Watson were there. I agree.
Honestly, if I'm that new GM for the Texans. If I'm that new GM for the Texans and that new head coach, I'm going to be like, this is our plan. We're going to go out and we're going to try and get Allen Robinson. We're going to do our best. We're not going to sell the farm to get him, but we're going to make him a really solid offer. If some team one-ups us, we can't do anything about that. But we also want to bring back Will Fuller too. We want to try and draft a better running back for you. We want to try and get this offensive line. But I think right there is a good start of an argument of why Deshaun should stay.
It's the approach I would take. I agree with you. Try and save the ship, so to speak. Here, we'll do this. We'll do this.
Try and patch the holes in the.
Yeah, you make Fuller a 2 again. Oh, with Robinson being the 1.
Fuller was like wide receiver 10 until he got suspended.
I agree. I think he's so, even more talented than I was giving him credit for. But just the other things we have to.
The thing with Fuller was always, it wasn't talent; it was health. It was him staying healthy,
and he showed that.
And he more or less did that. I think he missed a game, but
he also took PEDs to get there. So,
I mean,
we're not a doctor; we can't speculate whether that was the reason. But those two things,
and also what he took to was, I don't know, and how much they're like, is that really going to up your game that much, dude?
Oh, okay, so it was a substance that wasn't not clearly a.
It wasn't like a
It was probably a hormone
Jose
thing.
Canseco was injecting steroids into his butt,
Yes,
it wasn't that from the 90s.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's important to make that distinction. That's fair. Yeah. And I didn't realize it was something that could be construed as less minor or as more minor. But again, health. I think his contract is up. Fuller's is. But anyway, I guess we're talking about Allen Robinson, not the Texans. But that'd be a good example of a team to go to. Absolutely, he would. God, that would be great offense.
Yeah, I don't know what, I don't really, off the top of my head, I don't really know what other team he would go to.
Yeah.
That has a quarterback that's going to be really, really good to really elevate Allen Robinson to potentially a wide receiver number 1. He has that talent, but as far as teams that are looking for that sort of thing, I don't know. I mean, Cleveland, I don't think Baker's that good to to really elevate.
I would hesitate there. I'm looking at a list. Sorry if my screen is bright. Trying to brainstorm.
I mean, maybe Cincinnati. Like that would actually be a really great fit for him.
Yeah, but I like Tiggins too much.
Tiggins is not as good as I like Tiggins a lot.
No, I'm not saying that. No, not at all. Could Tiggins one day maybe?
No, he's not as fast.
Okay, fair. Really?
Anyways,
yeah, we'll get off that.
That's been our top 12 right there.
Yeah.
You can always email us at Amazing Fantasy Football. We have a Discord thing going on. I know it's the off season and everything, but hey, there's just some general, shooting the breeze sort of stuff in there too.
And, I'll leave some links below for Discord and what else we have going. Our Twitch channel. Oh, we haven't done any. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I would know. I didn't have anything to say.
Oh, I was just going to say we haven't. You were doing a little bit of housekeeping. There's some other housekeeping to do. We didn't talk about the NFL. I'm sorry, we didn't talk about the Super Bowl or the NFL draft yet. We're tossing back and forth the idea of some live streams. But in the description below, I'll link our Twitch. I'll link my Twitch and Discord.
To give you a heads up on this, not to talk about it I did take the night of the draft off the next day in case I get a little intoxicated.
Nice.
So if you want to do it a stream, then
you'll be present. Nice. Yeah,
I'll definitely be present for all of it. So
forgive us at home. We don't have a time.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and say that we're going to do a stream for the NFL draft. The first round, that is. We will be doing a little drinking during it, I'm assuming. At least that's my plan, unless I decide to go sober May.
People do that? Okay. But yeah, it'll be a kind of the other format, the live. Well, it won't be. It'll be more of a live, kind of a fun format. It won't be recorded.
Which in that case, just go to Twitch TV and search for
Twitch.tv, Amazing Fantasy Football. I'll link it down below. Yeah. So that way you'll see our Twitch channel and our Discord for Amazing Fantasy Football. And then I'll go and link my little Twitch channel there where I do computer stuff. That way you can look for that.
You can also email us and give us some feedback on this sort of thing too.
Exactly.
If you're watching us on YouTube, we have the show available in podcast format.
Yes.
If you're listening to this in podcast and you haven't figured it out by now, you can watch us on YouTube. And we're Amazing Fantasy Football just about everywhere. So whatever. Our email is amazingffb because Amazing Fantasy Football is way too long for an email address. That is amazing, amazingffb@gmail.com. And give us some feedback. I'm hoping by next weekend we'll be available on Apple Podcast or whatever the heck they're calling it nowadays. It's an extra couple of steps to take to go through their rigmarole or whatever, however you say that. So until then, everyone, we have a show coming up. Our next week's show is wide receivers 13 through 24. So until then, I will see you all then.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye. Have a good day. Stay safe.